Hi, it's Yvonne here from Women's Fitness Adventures. I am here to talk about our Annapurna Base Camp adventure that we have this coming October, and I'm excited to be here with Shane, our trekking partner. Shane is the founder and CEO of Escape Trekking Adventures, and we've done several adventures with Shane, and we think he's awesome. He takes us to some fantastic places around Australia and the world. So we have trekked Kokoda with Shane. We've also trekked Port Stephens, and most recently our mystery weekend with Shane, which was to the Royal National Park in New South Wales. So we've put together this afternoon some frequently asked questions about our Annapurna Base Camp adventure. And so what will happen from here is I'll ask Shane some questions about Annapurna coming from a 50-something female, and Shane will answer those questions. And hopefully if you're thinking of coming with us to Annapurna or have any questions, that we'll have solved some of those for you. So my first question to you, Shane, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. So my first question, Shane, is I've never been to Nepal. So I'm a little bit concerned about altitude. Can you explain altitude to me?
Altitude is probably, it's not the hidden demon that everyone thinks it is, but it is something that needs to be managed. What occurs when you trek at altitude is a reduction of air pressure, and your body can't absorb the oxygen molecules as readily as it can at sea level. So your body needs time to adapt, and as a result, if you have a sensible acclimatization program and an ascent profile, your body will adapt, and you will, whilst you feel the changes, you won't have any adverse effects.
Okay, so those adverse effects are what they call altitude sickness, is that correct?
Yeah. Starts out with acute mountain sickness. It can be pulmonary and cerebral edemas. Okay,
so what sort of altitude you have to get to for altitude sickness to kind of kick in?
It starts occurring, the recorded occurrences have been from 2,500 metres and above. Okay. Generally speaking, the worst sort of symptoms, or the people who may experience the worst symptoms, is generally above 3,500 metres. Okay. But it can occur below that.
So if on a trek, if I take it slowly and acclimatise and take my elevation over time, the longer time I take in elevation, the less the likelihood I may get altitude sickness?
That's right, yeah. Your body's just adapting to the environment, and our bodies are pretty smart, complex machines, and they adapt and learn and move on. And so, and that's all altitude requires, basically.
Excellent. So how do you monitor someone for signs of altitude sickness?
We take daily readings of your oxygen saturation and your blood levels on a little monitor I carry, and we also take your heart rate readings. We record those just onto a sheet here every day, and that coupled with a Lake Louise score, which was developed by the best altitude doctors in the world at a conference in Lake Louise a few years back. And by taking these recordings down, we can monitor your progress and make smart decisions based on data and evidence that we have.
Excellent. That's good. One of our ethoses at Women's Fitness Adventures is that we work as a team, and that if someone does happen to feel or show some signs of altitude sickness, then the whole team slows down. And I'm sure you would agree with that as well, Shane, that it's a holiday as much as it is an adventure to somewhere new.
Yeah, definitely, and that even extends to our team and our employees in Nepal. So they're actually number one, and then we're all number two. But if we look after them and they're fine, we'll be fine as well. So
yeah, excellent. So I want to go. I'm concerned I might not be fit enough. What about training? What sort of things? I know at Women's Fitness Adventures we'll give you a training program that will get you there. But Shane, is there anything else you can suggest to train for Annapurna?
Nepal has a lot of steps, so step training, which would be included in your package, and some high interval intensity training was also beneficial. But other than that, you can't specifically train for altitude, and I've found altitude gyms are basically a waste of time. They don't do anything for your adaptation when you're there.
So the best thing for adaptation is really to slow down the rate of your elevation and slow down the trek so that you acclimatise, so that you have better success rate of achieving your adventure.
Yeah, and you know, a couple of symptoms of altitude sickness is a loss of appetite and headaches. You shouldn't lose your appetite. People say it's normal. It's not normal.
Okay.
If you ascend at the right rate, you will maintain your appetite and you'll eat even more.
Great. That's exciting.
And you shouldn't get headaches. So, yeah, a lot of people say that, and that is absolutely incorrect.
Okay, so the fact that we're being monitored every day, though, we would know straight away if, you know, well and truly before altitude sickness kicked in, and we would just slow down the trek. And
that's right. Yeah, you make changes to make, you know, good, smart decisions, and then we can all go together.
Excellent. So one of the things we do at Women's Fitness Adventures, if you're considering this trek or any other trek, is that we do have hike training plans. In addition to being the founder and CEO of Women's Fitness Adventures, I'm also a certified personal trainer. So I will write you programs to get you set for our Annapurna adventure. So how long, Shane, will we hike for each day on our Annapurna Base Camp adventure?
Most days are just around a 4 to 6 hour average of hiking time, and maybe a little longer or faster depending on our rest breaks and how we go as a group. But generally speaking, 4 to 6 hours of walking every day.
Mm-hmm. That sounds pretty civilized to me. So another question that I get asked quite often about this particular adventure, there's a few questions, but what are the sleeping arrangements on our adventure with you?
So they're all dormitory rooms that basically have 2 to 3 beds as a maximum.
So no tents?
No tents.
No tents.
All single-sex rooms. And then you'll just obviously trek together, and the ladies in the group will sleep with the same people in the same rooms. So they're quite comfortable beds, pillows, sheets, and then you sleep in a sleeping bag on top of that. And it's almost like glamping compared to anything in a tent.
Fantastic. That's what I like to hear. Glamping, and we're not going to lose our appetite. What more can you want? So we were talking just before that, you know, a couple of the most common questions we get asked, as well as the sleeping arrangements, is what about food, and what about if I need to go to the toilet? So, you know, sometimes we could get a grumpy tummy when we're in a foreign country. And how do I stay nourished? So I guess those two are linked, eating and toilet. So do you want to share a little bit about that?
Toilets first. So there's loads of different villages and campsites along the way. You're generally not going to walk for any longer than 2 hours without seeing one of those. So there's toilets at every location. We can use a toilet on the side of the path if we have to, if it was an emergency. But all the toilets are porcelain Asian-style toilets, and they have concrete floors, and there's water to wash away the waste, and the smell of them is quite fine. They're not like the Australian pit toilets, actually probably smell a bit worse.
Yep.
Than these. So I think they're quite nice. They're nothing like toilets that you would experience in places like Kokoda and that.
Oh, excellent. Well, that's why we also give you one of these Women's Fitness Adventures buffs, so that when you go to the toilet, if it is a little bit on the offside, you just pull it up over your nose like that and breathe through that, and it minimises any smell. But the facilities, when we say shared, single-sex accommodation with shared bathroom facilities, it's equivalent to an Australian campground in terms of not necessarily the toilets themselves, but you're sharing with other people that may be in that same facility for the evening. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Okay. So what's the weather like in October when we go?
It's rather warm at that time of year. Down low, you'll be in shorts and a t-shirt. You know, the evenings you'll obviously have warmer layers on, but as we get at higher elevation, we're going to need to add more layers. You know, and a down jacket is always an essential, Gore-Tex jackets and those types of things. But it's more on the lighter side of layering as opposed to going to some higher elevations such as Everest Base Camp.
Okay. And are there wildflowers out at that time of year?
Yeah, there is. There's a load of flowers.
A
You'll
load
see
of flowers. Field
barley and
of
maize,
flowers. Stay in a field.
fields of flowers. And there's barleys and maize and rice crops, and it's really, really scenic. You get to see the Fishtail Peak for a majority of the trek, and that's called Machu Picchu Peak. It's a spiritual and holy peak to the Nepalese, and no one is allowed to climb it, and everyone respects that. So it's actually a really nice peak to see. And then the Annapurna ranges are quite spectacular also.
Yeah, excellent. And of course, if you are thinking of coming, we do have a comprehensive gear list that you will be supplied that has anything that is needed. And there's certainly equipment that you can hire, such as sleeping bags that are at the right temperature for the conditions that we'll be experiencing. Okay, Shane, the toughest question of all, what about the food? I've heard all sorts of stories that, do we eat meat? Do we not eat meat? Do I have to be a vegetarian to go? Are we just eating stews every night? And I know you're such a foodie, which is another reason for going with you, that we're going to eat exceptionally well and not lose our appetite. Do you want to share a little bit about the food?
The food will vary as we go. There will be a particular point along the trek we'll say, okay, there's no more meat. We can't guarantee the hygiene of the meat because of the distances that it has to travel from refrigeration. So that's all vegetarian style meals, but there's always boiled eggs or fried eggs or scrambled eggs available every day. They do sort of these toasty breads they call Gurkha bread, and it's kind of a cross between a croissant and toast. It's really unique. Goes really nice with honey and jam. You always get porridges. There's lots of stews with vegetables, and there's a load of protein in those. There's dal bhats, which are a lentil curry, and there's loads of protein in that. So there's lots of protein options, but there's other places we can eat chicken, and you can try buffalo, and maybe you might try yak if they had it at some places, but usually their yak is actually buffalo. So.
Okay. Well, I can vouch for the dal bhat because we had that on our mystery weekend, and that's what we had. That was really yummy. So I can vouch for that. Okay, so do I need any immunisations is another question that we get asked.
You're best to see your general GP about that, or your travel doctor, but they're very much similar to everywhere else in Asia. You're going to find the same sorts of immunisations required.
Yeah, great. Okay, so a couple of questions I've been asked is I want to go, but I'm a little bit nervous. And at Women's Fitness Adventures, we understand that going and doing something for the first time can be a little bit nerve-wracking, a little bit anxious, but a lot exciting at the same time. At Women's Fitness Adventures, you may feel uncomfortable on an adventure because it's something that you haven't done before, but at no time will you ever feel unsafe. And that's another one of the reasons that we're going with Shane. Now, Shane, I know because we're an all-female group, you've taken some great lengths to sort out some Sherpas for us for this adventure as well. Would you like to shed some light on who we're going to, or the style of Sherpa that we're going to have?
Yeah, so Kendu Sherpa is our female head guide, and she's qualified as a head guide in Nepal, and there's quite a specific training package they have to go through, and they've got to learn a load of knots and rescue techniques for stretches, and they're very well trained. They go through all the altitude sickness training as well, and in addition to, I've coached them a little further to what they've learnt. So she's really, really good at what she does, speaks fluent English, and she's only just in her 30s now, so she's still quite young as a leader and a guide, but she's transforming into a fantastic leader. As far as our porters go, who will be carrying our equipment, there will be a mixture of male and female porters, and we'll have those to carry our equipment up to base camp, or Annapurna Base Camp and back, and so it makes it a really quite unique adventure that you'll be able to then talk to these Nepalese women, and you can find out how they fit in and how society works over there and their class systems, and it makes it really interesting.
A fabulous opportunity as well for us to be able to talk with the women over the course of the length of the trip, because you know, a day here or a day there doesn't really give you that opportunity to get to know someone. But when we're there and we're fully immersed, it will form some great bonds, I'm sure. Are there many female head Sherpas in Nepal?
No, very few. You see a few here and there, but there's very few and far between. So it's I've been lucky to work with Can Do for a few years now. So we're bringing it through, and it's this sort of style of job isn't common for a female, and it's a fairly well paid job, and it's sort of she's basically paving the way for the future generations of female guides as well. So
Fabulous.
Really unique opportunity for her, me, and the group.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really, really exciting. So I know we've spoken about porters and having trekked with you in Kokoda as well. The relationship that you have with the porters is really important to the success of the adventure, but also to the happiness and well-being of everybody on that adventure as well. Without giving away your secrets, what's your secret?
Just to treat them like we treat each other. They're human like you and me, and they want the same things that we want: good health, money, good, loving family, food over roof over their head, and food in their bellies. So you can help them tick those boxes and treat them like an equal. Then they're happy to work for you. Fabulous.
It sounds like a really good group already, and we haven't met them. So just a couple more questions, Shane. Another question I've been asked is, I've heard the bus trips and roads are a little bit hairy. So how does that pertain to our adventure?
Yes, there's quite a notorious bus trip from Kathmandu to Pokhara, and it's some 18 hours on a bus, and the roads go from skinnily narrow to really wide at passes with potholes and loads of traffic. So to avoid that, we actually fly to Pokhara. And yeah, we're talking like a 45-minute flight, which is much more convenient and smoother and faster. They're fairly large planes. You're talking around Dash 8s and Fokker 100s, and so quite a large plane to be flying in. No small planes.
Yep, good.
And nice big clear runway. It's an all-weather runway all year round, so we don't have the risk of being delayed for days with clouds. So
yeah.
And then from there we go by Jeep up to the start of the trip. You're looking at a couple of hours drive, and we get out and we drive basically as far as we can to avoid walking on the side of a road, which is one way of cutting costs, I guess. You can drop people off a day's walk further out from there and make them walk on the side of the road, which is not a really nice place to be.
No, absolutely not, especially if those roads can have multiple traffic and things like that. That's just not a good option. So I guess I've been pronouncing it wrong forever because of the adventure store calling it Kathmandu, but it's obviously Kathmandu.
Kathmandu, yep.
Kathmandu. So there you go. If you've been like me, change. So what is everyone who goes there to Kathmandu falls in love with it? What's the attraction, and where do we stay when we're there?
The attraction is, it's a little bit like Melbourne in those little side streets and alleys. There's all these fantastic little restaurants and cafes that if you walk past and don't look around, you'll never find. So it has that sort of appeal. The only word that can really describe it is cool. It has a really good atmosphere about it. We stay just a little bit out of the tourist district. It's about a 10-minute walk. The centre of the tourist district is mayhem, and the traffic and the noise is quite loud for long periods. And the hotel facilities in there are at a lower grade and are at more risk of someone walking into an establishment and pinching someone out of someone's bag. So we stay at a really nice Tibetan themed hotel. And this place you can stay at, the Mantra anywhere around the world, but the hotels we stay at have a real theme to them, and you find it's really, really cool. You can immerse yourself in Nepalese culture, and the staff are there are very friendly and helpful. But surrounding the hotel, there's absolutely everything you need. There's a small supermarket. We have a couple of money changers. There's a French bistro restaurant right nearby. So serves more wine than probably half the restaurants in Australia do. And we've got some other little Indian cafes and restaurants. There's continental, there's all these little places just around the corner from the hotel, so you don't have to go far if you don't want to. All the souvenir shops, everything you can buy, everything you need is just around the corner.
That's right there. So on the adventure, there's also time for some sightseeing around Kathmandu. But if you've been on an adventure with us before, or with Shane and us before, or know the types of accommodation we stay in, we don't stay in bland generic, and we look for the quirky, we look for the authentic, we look for the immersion in the culture. And as Shane has outlined, it seems we are staying in a place just like that, and there's even more reason to get excited. So then the other thing, Shane, is when we fly in for at the start of our adventure, and we're all generally on that same flight together, we'll be met at the airport and taken to the hotel. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yep, so can do, and depending on what assistant guide, I'll probably have Manju with her. They'll be at the airport, and supply them with a photo of each of the people that arrive, and they have an uncanny ability to pick your face out of the crowd from a photo. And they'll be holding up a Women's Fitness Adventure sign. And we go from there straight onto a private transport bus, and it'll take you back to the hotel. Depending on the flight times, where it arrives in the middle of the day, the transit's only 15-20 minutes. If it's towards the peak hours, you'd be looking at about a 25-30 minute transit. So, and they'll come back to the hotel with you, and I'll be there with all the room keys, and we'll check you straight into your rooms as soon as you get there.
Excellent. So it sounds pretty smooth. So I hope we've answered all the questions here. You know, the main concerns we have all the time, which we've addressed, is I'm a little bit nervous. How do I deal with that? And I hope we've covered off some of your concerns about that in terms of a safety aspect with our leader, Shane, who will be with us the whole way. You'll also have your Women's Fitness Adventures crew leader with you, and you have the option to travel on the flight with her, or make your own arrangements to get to Kathmandu. We've covered off the food, where we can and can't eat meat protein, but certainly the generosity of the food and the style of food. And we've heard that there's a cross between a croissant and a piece of toast that we can load up with honey or jam, or probably even Nutella, and eat that as well. We've spoken about our sleeping arrangements, so same-sex dormitories with shared bathroom facilities, similar to if you were camping in Australia, where you would share with other campers, different style of facilities, of course, but where you share with other campers. And we've also covered off the whole concern about altitude sickness and fitness training. Shane, is there anything else you want to add before we leave everyone?
Probably just say, if you're thinking about doing it, do it, because Nepal, once you've been there, the culture's amazing, but the trekking, it's a trekking mecca. It's like the nirvana for trekking. If you think all these other places in Europe and Australia are amazing, you get there and you can trek off so many different scenic environments in Nepal, and it's just, it is the international destination for trekking. So I'd encourage you to go and find out about it, and then you might be hooked and go back there for future trips in other areas, or into other neighbouring countries such as Bhutan.
Yeah, which is another exciting one as well. So there you have it. That's the most frequently asked questions we get on our Annapurna Base Camp adventure. There is our hiking guide, which you can jump onto the Facebook page and under this video request that from us, or also just drop us an email, info@womensfitnessadventures.com, and we will get that to you if you don't have it already. Certainly, if you've got any questions, you can email us any questions we haven't answered. The adventure goes in October, so still plenty of time for some training in there. If you have been on any of our adventures and have a moderate level of fitness, then this adventure will be fine for you. Obviously, talk to us if you have any concerns. You would need to walk up a hill for roughly 30 minutes and feel comfortable doing that. Shane, would you suggest that in terms of how do you measure where your fitness level is at?
Yeah, there's the ascents are usually in shorter patches like that, 30 minutes or less. So, and we take a break along the way if you need to, but that it's not an extreme level of fitness, or it's Kokoda and Everest Base Camp are way up here, and Annapurna is much lower down the scale.
Excellent. So if you've been thinking of it and have had that hesitation, we hope we've allayed some of your concerns. If you have any questions, we're more than happy to answer those. Simply put the questions in below and we will come back to you as soon as we can, and we hope that we're able to share this adventure with you. Any parting words, Shane?
No, just hopefully I get to see a few people there, and we'll get to enjoy a few weeks together, and I'll get to show you a few nice little cafes and restaurants that I know around the place.
I told you he was a foodie. Well, thank you, and we hope to meet you on an adventure soon.